So like I mentioned, today we are going to be doing Illustrator. So it's very important, like I said that time, Photoshop, because one taboo that graphic designers make is that some graphic designers use Photoshop to design logo, which is very bad. So what you use for designing, especially when a client meets you and say, I want you to do a logo for me, you use Illustrator. And that's the industry standard. Because when you start looking for jobs now, they will say must be proficient in Adobe Creative Suite. So in this training now, you've learned Photoshop. What you're learning now is Illustrator. So you have two. If you know these two now, you can very well you can start applying for design jobs. So like we mentioned earlier, if you start Illustrator, you click on File, New, and I'll go to Print like I did. I'll select A4. I'll be using landscape orientation, my color in RGB, and I'll change my units to pixels. Wait. So like we mentioned earlier, for your interface, you come here, make sure you are in Essentials Classic. Then the important tools, like in Photoshop, we have the Move tool, the Text tool, the Line Segment tool, the Rectangle tool, and the Direct Selection tool. So the Rectangle tool is what we use to draw rectangles and shapes like rectangle and square. So if you select your rectangle tool, just draw a simple rectangle. And then always go back to your Move tool after drawing a shape. Then I'm going to change the color from here to yellow and the stroke to green, and I'll change my stroke to 2 points. The next shape we are going to draw is a square. So we still use the same rectangle tool, but this time we'll press and hold Shift key and draw a square. Then the next thing is to draw a circle, and we use an ellipse tool for that. But you also hold your Shift key to draw a circle. Then triangle. Triangle is the shape that we've not drawn, right? So to draw a triangle, if you remember from mathematics, when you did polygons, you have polygons of different sides. You have four-sided polygon, which is what we call quadrilateral. Then we have hexagon, nonagon, all those things. So a triangle is a polygon with three sides, right? So to draw a triangle in Illustrator, you select polygon, then you click once on the canvas. You see that it will tell you polygon, to bring out the polygon dialog box, and you have sides. When you change the size to 3, leave the radius the way it is, change the size to 3 and click OK. You see that you have a triangle. So a triangle is a polygon with 3 sides. We have 3 shapes now, before shapes. Or we have 4 shapes that you can draw in Illustrator. So if you understand how to draw shapes and change their colors in Illustrator, it's a very fundamental skill that you should know. Another thing is how to duplicate shapes. So if you want to duplicate a shape, select the shape, press and hold Alt key. You will see that your arrow will change from this single arrow here to this double arrow. If it doesn't change, it means that your duplication will not work. When it has changed, you can now click and drag to duplicate the shape. Okay, so that's for duplication. Another thing we need to learn is transformation. And I say transformation is either increasing the size or reducing it, rotating the object, and then distorting. Distorting means like changing the shape to another shape entirely. So the first one, we're going to use our rectangle. The first thing is scaling. Scaling is changing the size. Scaling is changing the size. That is either making it big or making it small. So if you're in a design community or in a design session and you're asked to scale your rectangle, it means what they're asking you to do is either increase the size or reduce the size. So if you want to scale this rectangle now, you use either of these four anchor, these edges here, these four anchor points. These points here are called anchor points. So there are how many? I think there are about 6 of them, or 8, sorry, 8 of them. 8 anchor points. So those are the points you can use to scale your object. So I can scale from here. If I bring my mouse close to any of these anchor points now, I can drag this up. So what I'm doing now, I'm increasing the heights. And as you do so, I want you to watch the H value. So that the H value is increasing, right? But the W value, which is for the width, is not changing. So what we are doing now is that we are adjusting only the height of this. Okay? We are not using shift now. Then if I want to adjust the width, I come to this anchor point here. Then I can adjust. You see that this time the W value is changing, which means we're adjusting the width. So depending on what you want to do, you can adjust the size to what you want. Now if you want to adjust both the height and the width, you use any of these corner, any of these anchor points at the corner. Now you see that both values are changing, right? And you can size it to any size you want. But if you want to maintain the shape, if you want to maintain this, like the structure of the shape, let's say this is our shape now. Let's say this is our original shape. If I scale without pressing the shift key, I can change the shape. I can change the shape to I make it this. But if I don't want it to, if I don't want the shape to change, I want it to maintain the same proportion, like the same image, I'll press and hold my shift key, and you see that we are not changing the shape, we are just reducing the size of the shape. If I use if I use this circle now as an example, let me duplicate it. If I change it, if I resize it without holding shift, it is now changing from a circle to something else. But if I want to maintain, if I want to reduce the size while maintaining the circle, that's the original circle, I'll press and hold the shift key, and you see that what we are doing is that we are just reducing the size of the circle, but we still have a what? A circle. Is that clear? So let's try it for the so let me reduce this. So what I want you to do is duplicate the shapes you have here and just create a smaller version of them without changing the shape. So just create a smaller version of each one. Let's continue. Now another way we can do that easily is selecting multiple objects. Selecting multiple objects is easy. You just make sure you're outside the number of objects you want to select. Click and hold and drag. You see you have this square here, this dash square. So that's what you use to select. So if I drag it over everything, you see that it selects all the shapes, and what I want to do is I want to delete them. I'll just delete them. Okay, so I want to show you another quick method of doing that, like duplicating the shapes and reducing the size. So what I'll do is I will select this, I'll select everything. How did I select? I dragged over all of it. So click and drag. Make sure your selection area covers the entire shape. So you see that everything is now selected. Then I'll press and hold Alt key and come close to any of them. Come close to any of them and then drag. So you see I have exact copy of what is here. Then as everything is still selected here, everything is still selected, I'll hold Shift key and reduce the size from here. You see that we've done the same thing. Alright, so for rotation, let me select all and delete again. Duplicate this one. So for rotation, very easy. On the shape you want to rotate, bring your mouse cursor to the edge of any of the anchor points until it changes to this curved arrow. Okay, you cannot rotate until it has changed to this curved arrow here. Then you can now click and hold and rotate. So you can rotate to a particular angle. Let me rotate mine 90 degrees. So we have now rotated this 90 degrees. Now it doesn't make sense to rotate a square now because a square is the same on all sides. It doesn't also make sense to rotate a circle because a circle is uniform on all sides. But we can rotate a triangle. So I'll duplicate my triangle. And I can rotate it 90 degrees. I can rotate it 45 degrees. You see that the value of the rotation is always appearing. Now, if you want to rotate to a specific value, that's between. So, like I said, when we are rotating, you can use Shift key to constrain your rotation between 90 degrees, 45 degrees, 135 degrees and 0 degrees. Just to give you that accurate rotation, you hold your Shift key. Now, if you don't hold your Shift key, you can just rotate to any value. But once you press and hold your Shift key, you see that it constrains your rotation to specific values. So you have 0, 45, 90, 135, 180, 225, 270, 315 and back to 0 degrees. So using Shift is very important to get very accurate rotations when you are doing anything. So I want you to rotate your rectangle to 45 degrees. That's your triangle. Rotate it to 45 degrees. So all these rotations and the rotations and resizing that we did can be done on the properties panel. So if you look at the properties panel, you see we have a W and H value, right? So W is for the width, and it only shows you the size of the element that is selected. So if I select my rectangle now, So this W is saying that this has a width of 154.7297 pixels. Then the height is 314 pixels. Alright, let's continue. So let's go to distortion. For distortion, you are going to be using okay, let's start with this first. The first distortion you do is to add rounded edges. To add rounded edges. If you look at this rectangle now, it has sharp edges. See, it has sharp corners, right? If you want to make the edges rounded, select the rectangle, and you will notice these circles here. I call them circles or dots. You notice them, right? If you click on any one and drag, you see that it will give your shape rounded edges. Have you seen that? So that's one of the distortions you can do to create rounded edges. So let me do this. Let me duplicate these guys. So I will just change. Circle doesn't need rounded edges, so I'm going to delete the circle. So rectangle, rounded edges, square, rounded edges, triangle, rounded edges. So I want you to create this. So for zooming in, Ctrl plus and Ctrl minus. Ctrl plus to zoom in, Ctrl minus to zoom out. Ctrl 0 to bring it to the original view. If you want to change the shape or modify the shape, changing the shape or modifying the shape, you will use direct selection tool instead of selection tool. See, we have two. We have one, this is selection tool, then the white one is direct selection tool. What direct selection tool allows you to do is it allows you to select the different anchor points. So you see, it says this is an anchor point, this is another anchor point. So it allows you to select the individual anchor points. And what does that allow you to do? If you select the anchor points now, you can change the shape. The copy I say if you want to change the shape, you want to modify the shape, you use the direct selection tool. Direct selection tool allows you to select the individual anchor points. If I go back to the selection tool, you see that you cannot select the individual anchor points. But with the direct selection tool, you can select individual anchor points. So if you select an anchor point, you can change its position to change the shape, the copy. Okay? I don't know what they call this shape. Is it trapezium? If you want to create something like a trapezium, select the anchor points and then press on your arrow keys. You can move. If you don't want to move it around with the direct selection tool, you can move it with your arrow keys. So you see that we've changed this shape to something different. Okay, so you can also only do that with direct selection tool. Then if I go back to my selection tool and duplicate this, sorry. If I duplicate this, direct selection tool. So it's better you use the arrow keys than trying to use this. Unless you are doing something that is more freestyle. If you are doing something that is more freestyle, you can use the mouse. But if you are trying to get something more accurate, I will use my arrow keys. So, and you can also press shift to make the movement faster. If I'm just pressing the arrow keys, the movement is slow. But once I press shift, see that the movement is a lot faster. Arrow keys on your keyboard. So I want you to create the shapes. You can do the same for the triangle. Direct selection. So you see we now have a right angle triangle. So I want you to create these shapes now using the direct selection tool. Alright, let's continue. We've done distorting shapes. Now there's another interesting one I want us to do. Combining shapes. Okay? Combining shapes. I hope we understand the distorting part, how to use the direct selection to move. Remember that direct selection, another thing I want you to remember is that, you know, when you did, when you were changing the rounded corners, it was, when you change one, you change the rest, right? But with direct selection tool, you can do just 1 point with direct selection tool. That's the difference between direct selection tool and the normal selection tool. Direct selection, you can select individual anchor points, so you can use it to change individual corner radius. Okay, so just make sure you double click on the one you want to change. Cancel. So if you select, it changes. So with this now, if it's changing all of them, click again. I want you to try this. Just change the individual corner radius on your shapes. So it's all this. If you know how to do all this, you know, changing of shapes, this is where logo design now comes in. Select. So before you change anyone, click to select it. Click once to select. Have different corner radius for them. Then we'll go to combining shapes. Combining shapes. Let me delete this too. Let's say I want to combine my triangle and this circle here. What you do is you bring them close to each other, to the shape that you want it to take, to the shape, the final shape. Let's say we want to get this kind of shape now. You notice that the rectangle, the triangle, sorry, the line of the triangle is still appearing here, but we want everything to combine to one shape. What you do is that since they are together now, you select both of them. When you select both of them, you will have you have to go to where is it again? Window. You have to go to Windows and select Pathfinder. Do you understand me? When you select both shapes, if you don't see the options to combine shapes here, okay, let me just close it. Under your properties, you will see Pathfinder. You see that when you select both shapes, under your properties, you should see Pathfinder when both shapes are selected. Still opening, Abby. You should see Pathfinder here. Have Are you seeing that? Okay. So if you click on the first one, unite. The first one is unite. So if you click on unite now, watch what happens. You see that both shapes have been combined into one. Okay. So let me undo that. The second one is minus fronts. Minus fronts. Now let me click on that and see what will happen. So minus front, we cut off the shape that is on top. Let me demonstrate. Let me change the color of this one to say blue color. So if you look at these two shapes now, which one is on top of which? Triangle is on top of the circle. Now if I select both of them and come to this, this is minus fronts. So it's going to cut off the shape. It's going to use the shape that is on top to cut off the one that is under. Do you understand? So what happens now? It has used the triangle to cut off part of the circle. Let me show you another demonstration for you to. Let's say I rotate my circle. My rectangle, my triangle. Notice the triangle is still on top of the circle. If I select it and select minus front, what kind of shape do you think it will create? A circle with a what? A segment. That's good. So you see that you have created this, and this is actually a logo for a game. This is actually a logo for a game. If I go to Google now and I search Pac-Man, see. So this is Pac-Man's logo. All we need to do now is add a what? A black square, isn't it? A black circle. Now you have Pac-Man's logo. And then rotate it to the shape that it is. So if we do that quickly now, change our stroke to black, right? Go to shape tool and create another one. Change the fill to black. And you see that we have created Pac-Man's logo. So the secret to Illustrator is understanding how to create shapes, how to distort shapes, how to transform shapes, then how to cut out shapes, which is what we are doing, cutting and combining. If you know how to combine and cut shapes, then it is easy to design logos. So this Pac-Man shape, create it. So one thing I want to do after creating it, select all and group. Select all, like select this. If I move this line, it's moving out. So select all and press Ctrl G to group it. So everything now becomes one. You can just keep it outside. Let me keep it outside. Keep it outside. So we've created one logo now. We are still going to create more logos. You want to create a wheel like this logo now, this 0. You see the way the circle is, it has a hole at the middle. So you use that same technique we used to create this one. What we'll do is we'll create another smaller circle inside. So we'll bring another circle. Ctrl Z. Let me just draw another circle on top of it. Ellipse tool, circle. So I'll draw another circle. I'll give it a color that I can easily see, black. Bring it to the center and let me increase the size and bring it to the center. So if you want to make sure everything is properly aligned to the center, select all of them. You will have alignment in your properties panel. So align to the center horizontally and also align to the center vertically to make sure everything is perfectly aligned. So for Pathfinder, which option are we going to use to create a hole in a circle? Are we going to unite or minus front? Minus front. So if you click on minus front, you see that it creates a hole in the circle. Let me show you another minus front trick. So if I select this square, or let me delete it, let me draw another square. Let's say I want to cut out a part, like an opening. I want to create an opening inside this circle now. I'll draw a square on top of it. Make sure the square is in front. Let me just give it a color to know the difference. Then if I select both of them and use minus front again, you see that we have this letter C here. So this minus front technique is very, very, very useful in logo design. Okay, any confusion? All right, so that's for combining shapes. Let's look at other options. So let's see what other options do we have. Control G for grouping. Control G. We've been singing grouping in Photoshop. Did you select all of them? Then we have intersects. So intersect will, if you look at these two shapes, where do they intersect? At the middle here, right? So it will cut out the two shapes, but it will only leave the area where they intersect, but it will cut out the rest. So it will form, this will now form a segment. Is it a segment or an arc? An arc, to form an arc. So if you click on intersect, to form an arc. Okay. Then the last one is exclude. So exclude will remove the intersection and leave the rest. So it's just the opposite of intersect. Exclude is the opposite of intersect. It will cut out the intersection and leave the rest. While intersect will cut out the shapes that are outside and leave only the intersection. Okay. So let's go into, I think if you know these basic things, we can start working on some logos. We've done one already, right? We've done one, we've done Pac-Man. So I'm going to delete all the shapes. We've done Pac-Man, so let's keep Pac-Man here. Then let's do this Microsoft logo. This one is very simple now. This one is too simple. It's very simple. So you draw a square, right? Now, if you want to pick colors, you remember from Photoshop, we can pick colors from objects, right? If you want to pick colors, select your eyedropper tool here. See your eyedropper tool. Select it and then come to where you want to pick color. You pick the color. When you are done, quickly go back to your move tool. Okay? So I'll duplicate this. I can use my arrow keys to move it. Then eyedropper tool, pick color. Eyedropper tool, pick color. Okay, you guys don't have this, so because you don't have these colors, you can use the exact colors on your own. But if you're online on your laptop, you can go and download Microsoft logo and practice with it. So Or you can just come here, select red, here, select green, look for a green that is very close, here, select blue, for a blue that is very close, and select orange, for an orange that is very close. No, I think it's this one. So you have your logo. Select all and group, Ctrl G. I'll reduce the size a little bit while holding Shift key. We've not talked about the text tool, but if you could recall from Photoshop, text tool is very simple. You just click on text tool, which is this T here, and click anywhere to type. So I'll type Microsoft. Then increase the size. Hold Shift while increasing the size. And give it a gray color. You can either do that from here. Give it a gray color. You can change the font to match this one. We don't have this font, so you can just look for a font. But I'll just leave the default font like that. So you should have two logos now. Alright, let's attempt to do this Dell logo. So the first thing is to create your circle. I'll give my circle a blue color. Okay. So let's create another circle again. I'll give it a different color so I can see what I'm doing. So if you want to go back to your move tool, just press V. Unless you are on text tool already, that's why you cannot use V. So to center this, I will use center align here. And what pathfinder are we using? Minus what? Minus fonts. Okay. Then the next thing is to enter our text. Now there is something I'll advise. Since you are doing logo design and you have an E here that is bending, I would recommend that at the record, I'll recommend that you type the letters individually, one after the other. Okay. So let me just select a very good font here. So make sure you're using a bold font. Let's use Arial. Most of you have Arial, right? So use Arial and use black, Arial black. I will duplicate the text, type E, duplicate the text again, type L. This is giving me a very weird L. Okay, yeah, L. Duplicate again, L. So bring your text close to each other. Select everything and align to the bottom or the top. So mine is already aligned. I'll bring them close to each other. So for our E now, we can use our rotate. I'll hold Shift and rotate it to 45 degrees. Then bring it close. Just bring everything close. not listening now. Let me show you. So like I said, you type each of them separately. Then for your E, all you need to do is just rotate. Press and hold shift, or you just rotate. Bring the text close to each other. You can position your E until you get what you are looking for. So you can select all your texts. You select all of them, like select them. You can change their color to the same color together. I want to use this color. Good. Go to my color. I can group them, Ctrl G, and then bring it to Now notice that my logo is looking very different. The E, especially the E, is looking very different. Let me explain why that is so. The E here is hand drawn. You get me? The E here is not a ready-made E, like we just typed an E here. It is hand drawn, which means the person that designed the logo drew the E to match the shape. So we're just using this as a demonstration, okay? Just for you to get. So why it's looking different is because the E here is hand drawn, while we just typed our own E. Okay. So as you advance, you can now draw your own E to match everything. So do we get? Why we did this just for you to, get your hands on. So how many logos do we have now? Combine your logos. Now select everything and group it. We have 4 logos now. 3 logos. Let's see if we can do another one. So let's do YouTube logo. Copy image. The final one we are going to do is YouTube logo. Okay, this one is easy now. We can do it. Are we still doing the Dell logo? The last one is YouTube logo. So for the YouTube logo, very, very, very easy. Let's see what they did there. We have a rectangle, right? YouTube logo. Let me just bring it down here. Let's see. So I'll be creating the white one because it has 2 black and white. Let's draw a rectangle. Give your rectangle a red color. So we've created the rounded rectangle. The next thing is just to create the triangle. So polygon, 3 sides, okay. Change our polygon's color to white. Rotate it. Make sure you remove 2. Reduce the size and then bring it over. So we're using white color. Then we'll type our text YouTube. So change your fonts. Let's see, what font am I going to use? Let's try Verdana. Yeah, so I think Verdana will work. Let's use Verdana Bold. Even though that's not the original font, but most laptops have Verdana. That's why I'm using Verdana Bold for YouTube. So for this, select the rectangle and the triangle. Make sure everything is properly center aligned. And select the and group. Have you forgotten now? We did that. We did that. So what you do, let me show you, watch my screen. You've created your rectangle, right? You see these edges. These edges, these small dots here. Select any of them and drag. You get that? So you have your 4 logos. Just so even though your logos are not looking exactly like the original ones, don't worry. This is just for you to practice, because these logos were created by professionals. Okay? So this is just for you to practice. So finally, save your work. If you've not done that, Ctrl S to save your work. Give it a name. So I'll name this. I'll name this AIGE logo class. After you've saved your work, now if you want to convert what you've designed to a picture that you can send, you go to File, Export, and Export as, just as we did in Photoshop. Go to File, Export, and Export as. Then change the save as type, change it to JPEG, that's JPG. Click on Use Artboards, click on Range, and make sure you type in 1, and then click Export. So it will give you this option. Make sure it's in RGB and 300 whatever. That's 300 ppi resolution. Okay. What we are doing is exporting. To export. So after you've exported, mine exported to download, so you can go there and view it and send it to my email as your task for today. So that's all. So today you've learned how to create shapes in Illustrator, how to resize them, how to combine shapes, and how to use your text tool to enter your text. And we've created some dummy logos. So you can keep practicing on your own, play around. You can go on Pinterest or Google. There's one lady on Facebook. What she does is that she'll go on ChatGPT or on Google and try to replicate logos that she sees online. she's now a professional logo designer and she's making a lot of money. If I go to Instagram, I'll show you some of her work. So that's to tell you that you can go on your own and start trying to replicate logos. So these are logos done by her, and she started by replicating logos that she sees online. So this more knowledge that you have, you can go ahead and start, replicating logos, trying your hands on new logos. Okay, another logo I wanted us to do, even though the class is over, you can just watch how I might do this one. This is another logo I wanted us to do. Let me just do it real quick. But just export these ones you've done, this form that you've done. Maybe in the next class we'll do this one. Let's just stop here.